Hi, page turners, Katja here. Have you ever thought about how food and drink can be symbols of power, rebellion, and even isolation, revealing the hidden power dynamics in our social groups? That's what Junko Takase explores in her short, sharp, and satirical novella, May You Have Delicious Meals, translated by Morgan Giles. So it sounds comforting, but it is anything but. At just 144 pages, this book won the prestigious 2022 Akutagawa Prize with biting yet understated storytelling, where Takase dissects human relationships, societal pressures, and the roles we play to maintain or disrupt harmony. Huge thanks to NetGalley, Random House UK, and the teams at Cornerstone and Hutchinson Heinemann for the advanced reader copy. May You Have Delicious Meals releases on February 20th, so mark your calendars if this sounds like your kind of read. Now, I was drawn to this one because of the premise. So curious about how the writer would use food as a lens to explore Japan's rigid office culture. But what I didn't expect was how piercing and unsparing Takezi's story would be. At its heart, May You Have Delicious Meals uses food to reflect power dynamics, gender roles, and the pressures of maintaining workplace harmony. And the novella follows three colleagues, each grappling with their own frustrations and coping mechanisms in an office environment and arguably a society that feels politely oppressive. And each uses food as a way to either control, resist, or connect. Ashikawa is the office good girl, the one who bakes treats, charms management, and seems to embody harmony or group harmony and tradition. But is her kindness genuine or just a clever way to sidestep the system so she can leave the office on time? You can only find that out if you read it. Then there's Nitani, her boyfriend and co-worker, stuck in a system and a romantic relationship he quietly resents. Seriously, there's no romance in this one. But what there is an uncomfortableness in that you can recognize these couples. Here, Natani's instant noodle addiction is a small act of defiance against the domestic ideals that his girlfriend represents. And then Oshio, the outsider, representing the modern working woman in Japan who is trying not to be seen as a character like Ashikawa, this traditional person, but someone who wants to be recognized in a corporate environment for her efforts and as being accountable, reliable, and more. Hardworking but underappreciated, she's bitter about being overlooked in favor of charm over effort. Her after work drinking sessions with Natani reflect the development of an unhealthy coping mechanism. One of the novella's great strengths is how it highlights small acts of rebellion. The way food choices reflect defiance is striking. Natani's instant noodle addiction isn't just about convenience, it's about his dissatisfaction. He's resigned to societal expectations about his relationship with Ashikawa, but also resentful of the domestic bliss that she's supposed to represent. And Oshio's after work drinking is both an outlet for frustration and that coping mechanism, which, while heavy drinking has been normalized in the past for Japanese corporate men, for Oshio, it sort of reinforces her precarious position as a modern working woman where she doesn't have as much space as the traditional woman, and let alone not as much space as a corporate man. So, to understand the backdrop of Takezi's writing, consider the politician Naoki Yukata, who in recent years has made waves in Japan by arguing that women's independence should be revoked to combat declining birth rates. His belief, if women were wholly dependent on men, population concerns in Japan would disappear. Now, disturbingly, many have supported his views. However, even his staunchest followers balked when, in November last year, he suggested that women should be threatened with sterilization at age 30 to really reinforce on them the idea that they need to have children in their 20s. This was one of the few rather peculiar statements he later apologized for and retracted. But one has to wonder, would he have done so if not for Japan's Supreme Court ruling just a few months earlier in not July, Yes, in July 2024, the court declared unconstitutional a long defunct eugenics law that forcibly sterilized around 16,500 disabled individuals, including 68-year-old Yumi Suzuki, who was sterilized at just age 12 simply for being born with cerebral palsy. Now, a recent study I read about gender issues worldwide really enlightened me to issues in countries that hadn't even crossed my mind. So, if we think that these work issues are an issue just in Japan, obviously they're not. And as for rights, have a look at what's been happening or took long to happen in Switzerland. Now, food as a lens for workplace dynamics. Takase cleverly uses food to critique Japan's office culture. There's this concept of group harmony, or wa, deeply ingrained in Japanese workplaces and other places. In fact, I love aspects of this, like how school children participate in cleaning duties to instill a sense of collective responsibility. Something that I really like because I recently stopped going to my community pool because of a stomach churning experience back in October during an adult swim session. So no children can be blamed for this. I found the ladies' toilet with a number 2 smeared all over the silver flush handle. When I informed the staff, they sighed and said, "Not again," which really grossed me out. That alone was unsettling, but earlier that day, I had seen a man in the shower and casually blow his nose into his hand and wash it off by swirling in the water. So I was already done. Anyway, clearly, this was not group harmony or wa. It was a gross disregard for others, and don't even get me started on the clumps of hair in the shower stalls. So I like the idea of group harmony. But when it comes to harmony in the workplace, Japanese workplace, it often prioritizes team recognition over individual achievements. And what happens then in this book when not everyone is pulling their weight or is perceived not to be? Takase peels back the layers to expose the hidden costs of a system where harmony is just surface level, while deep resentments are actually festering beneath. So that is the heart of the story that unfolds. And the style of the writing is sharp and deliberate, cutting straight to the heart of her critique. Her characters function more as societal symbols than deeply developed people. So I think the story is distinctly plot driven. This approach works really well because it highlights Takase's true focus, which is the system itself and how people feel like cogs in a machine unable to escape. I thought the translation was really good, effectively capturing the biting tone, delivering the novella's message with subtle power. Yet, as much as I appreciated this novella, there are a few aspects that might not resonate with every reader. So, for example, when we talk about the characters serving as representations of societal roles rather than feeling necessarily fully fleshed out as individuals, readers who prefer deeply emotional connections with characters may find it harder to engage. The novella's critique is razor sharp, but its shortness, the brevity, means some ideas aren't explored as deeply as they could be. If you love diving into research to get the context of what's happening in Japan, you'll find plenty to unpack. But if you prefer a self contained narrative where you have all of the context given, the impact might not fully land. Then we have the translation, where I said it was really done well. There are some occasional British phrases like pot noodle, and I've been referring to Nitani's addiction as instant noodle addiction because I felt calling it pot noodle is very British and sort of pulls you out of the Japanese setting. If you enjoy literary fiction that's sharp, unflinching, and slightly discomforting, May You Have Delicious Meals is for you. It's a thought provoking exploration of the power plays hidden in plain sight, and I can see why it won the Akutagawa Prize. Deeply rooted in Japanese culture, yet thematically universal, I think it would be a good pick for the Misery May Readathon hosted by Gemma of Gem of Books and Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. It's not outright miserable, but that discomforting element makes it suitable. So, does this sound like a book you'd pick up? Share your thoughts below or leave me a little noodle bowl emoji. And thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time.